Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. It's good to see you. There's a little bit of a space between us and you, but hopefully you can hear that. There's about 80 or 90 people online right now, too. We probably have 50 people in the room. So just a great showing. I'd like to welcome you today and really thank you for taking time. I know how busy everything is. So I want to thank you for taking time today to join us, either online or in person. I'd just like to thank you for participating in the employee engagement survey. We had Debbie's going to go through that here. We had a great engagement, a great level of engagement. That's been really important for us as we think about next steps and do some planning in that regard. I just want to thank you for what you do day in and day out. I guess we probably don't get enough chance to say that, see each other and think through that. Represented in this call, so again, the 125 or 150 of us that are participating now, we don't always get to think about that, to talk to each other, to think of ourselves as this team that's come together to support research, but we really do great things together. We'll have a few examples of that, but truly, as a team with all of our expertise and energies, we are really an engine that allows all this to happen on campus, all this great research. So the agenda for today is pretty straightforward. We're going to do a quick welcome, which we're doing now. After that, Debbie Lammers, let her introduce herself in a second, is going to go through some of the results of the employee engagement survey, and that's been really successful. Many of you might have already met with Debbie as part of your units review and so forth. We're going to cover here kind of that group overall response. And then I'm going to talk a bit about a few things. So how does our unit fit into the university? How do we fit in with each other? That was one of the things that came out of the employee engagement survey. And I think it's important to think about that. And then lastly, we're going to talk about our mission and vision, something we've been working on. Looking forward to sort of talking about that with you today and getting your feedback. So that's the last thing. And I can't forget, but I'm going to forget. We're going to do a photo at the end of this, a group photo. So for everybody that feels comfortable, like to do that, I think, Natasha, we're just going to sort of meet out here afterwards. And for those online, towards the end in particular, so turn your cameras on if you'd like, and then we'll get a photo that way. Any questions about that basic format? Well, super. So with that, I'm going to introduce Debbie Lammers, and I would just like to say thanks to Debbie as well. She's been so helpful to us as we planned for this presentation, your engagement, the survey, meeting with the unit. So thank you so much, Debbie.
Okay. I'm going to stay fairly stationary behind the podium so that I don't have to travel around the room. But thank you, everyone, for having me here today. I've met a lot of you, as has been said, through all of the different units. But I'm Debbie Lammers. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Assistant Vice Chancellor of Learning and Development, and I work out of the Central HR Group. So I get to do a lot of great things like engagement survey, employee development, and a lot of professional development things. But today I'm here to go over some of the high-level engagement survey results for OVCR as a whole. So with the individual groups, we talked about what your reports look like, but we're going to just talk about at a high level. So this was the very first survey that we did for this group, and we had a 66% response rate for a group this size, and for the first time for something like this to go out was a really great response rate. And some people say, well, that's just a little over 50% of the people. We sent the survey out to about 351 people. And in general terms, just to give you some perspective, to get at least a 60% response rate your first time out of doing any kind of survey like this is great. So 66% is a really good accomplishment for us to have that kind of response rate back. And there's another number up here, 858. We also gave you the opportunity to give us your responses to every single question and to a couple of open-ended questions. There were 858 unique responses to the different questions as regards to open-ended things that you wanted to tell us about a variety of the questions and things that were going on, which was a lot of information to read through, but it gave us a lot of really great information to think about, to look at, to create action plans for individual units, but also that it led us to today and to the things that we're going to talk about today as well. So, there were on average, depending on which question you looked at, anywhere from 30 to 156 comments per question. So it took a lot of thought and a lot of time for people to do that. So thank you for being so involved in the survey. Some of the highlights. So we talked about grand mean or average score. So the overall grand mean score for when you take all of the questions that were answered and everybody that responded was a 4.0 on a 5-point scale. In the world of a 5-point scale, 3.0 is average, 3.5 is above average, 4.0 is a really high score. So for first time out, to have an overall grand mean score of a 4.0 is a really good average for everything. The percent of questions that had a grand mean score of over or equivalent to a 4.0 were 63% of the questions. So more than 50% of the questions answered had a 4.0 or higher score, which again are some really pretty good numbers. Not to say that there aren't things to work on, but overall, some great scores out there, depending on which question we were talking about. Now, our satisfaction rate. That's when we took a look at how many individuals answered 4s and 5s to the questions. That's when we look at overall satisfaction. So 74% of the individuals who answered the survey answered every question with a 4 or a 5. That's another significant score. So that means there's a fairly high satisfaction rate going on as well. 44% of the questions had an overall satisfaction rate of 75% or higher. So again, we had some really good scores, but we didn't stop there. We didn't stop looking at the scores. I'm a firm believer that scores are great, but where we get the meat of the information is from what you're telling us behind the scores, right? That's why we gave you the opportunity to answer questions at every single level, to give us your comments for every single question plus the open-ended questions. What I did with that information is I read every single comment that came through. I looked for trends in words that were being used, in comments that were being made. I looked at that by question, and then we looked at it overall. What were the things that we were hearing and seeing that you were telling us, so that I could relay that back to the leadership group so that an action plan could be put together. So of the questions, the highest scoring question was number 2, which is my manager or supervisor is open to hearing thoughts, ideas, and concerns of others. That ranked a 4.5 with an overall satisfaction rate of 89%. Now, the nice thing about this question is when we're in the midst of something like COVID, a lot of change in organizations, when you have a lot of turnover within organizations and a lot of things going on, a lot of times we don't feel we're being heard or we're being seen. The fact that you believe that your managers are listening to you, they're listening to your thoughts, your ideas, and your concerns is really welcoming to see. I do a lot of these surveys. That's not always the case out there. So the fact that you feel that you could go to your manager and talk to them is a really good thing, especially even if you're doing it remotely. Now, we always have a high and we always have a low. Now, again, keep in mind when I talk about low, both of these questions scored a 3.5. So they're still, above average. They're not in the 2s, but they were still the lower scoring questions. Question number 13, senior leadership provides staff a clear picture of the direction in which the institution is headed. Received a 3.5 with an overall satisfaction rate of 60%. The comments that came out around that were about, we're not sure where we're going. Where do we fit in within the university? Where do we fit in together, right? There was a lot of sense of pride, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but it was, what's our identity? Who are we? And how do we fit into this big monstrosity of a university? And we want to know more about that, and we want to hear that from the top down. The second question was number 16, the university's mission inspires me. So it's around the mission and vision. And that grand mean too was 3.5 with an overall satisfaction rate of 62%. I put both of them up there because they were very close, and there were some comments around that. Things like, I had to go out and Google the mission and vision of the university. And, I'm really inspired by the work I do, but I don't know if that's connected to the mission and vision of what we do. And I don't know, does the research area, do we even have a mission and vision, which you're going to hear more about today? So, we have to feel connected. We have to understand what we're doing is connected to something bigger. What value do I bring to that, and how am I connected to that? But the fact that people still have a lot of sense of pride in what they do and what they bring to the university, even not feeling connected to that, is still huge. And the scores are still really good. So, kudos to everyone here and to all the management group and the leadership group for the things that you're doing through all of these times that we've been going through. And again, for this being the first time out for a survey. So thank you so much for being, willing to be honest with your comments. So then the next thing we looked at were, what were the strengths? What were the things that came out that said, what are those things that as a whole we're doing really well? And the very first one that stuck out to me, which I always like to see, was a sense of pride. Time and time again, I read how there was such a sense of pride in what everyone does and contributes to the sense of research, whether it was from what we do with animals to what we're contributing to the overall wellness of research in general, how we manage contracts, the things we do for each other. There's a huge sense of pride within everyone that works here. And that's tremendous, even when you're not together all of the time. Having a sense of community, to have that sense of pride in what you're doing and what you're providing to the people around you and the community around you is huge. The second one was trust within teams. There was a lot of sense where there's trust within individual teams. Now, there was also talk about there's, the beyond the teams, that might be a little bit more fragmented. The trust going outside of my team might not be there, but that's understandable. In the time of COVID, you're not seeing other teams. You might be more siloed from other things. There's not as many get-togethers. You're not getting to know each other. When there's turnover, you don't know the people that you might have known previously. Harder to trust and harder to get to know each other. But to know that there's trust within teams, that my teammates have my back, that I could trust somebody when I go out on vacation, that's huge. That's foundational to having strong teams built together. And then lastly, managers who listen, right? Having that sense that you have a manager that has your back, a manager that's willing to listen. Now, there were still comments out there that, even though managers are listening, some things are slow moving. But you have to understand in this world, things are slow moving. I come from private industry. And the first thing I was told by my manager was, you need to understand, things are slow moving around here. You're used to, I got an idea. Let's just implement it right now and things move. I was like, yeah, but it can't be that slow. Can it really? I was like, oh, you weren't lying when you said slow. I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, if you want to re-implement new employee orientation, that should take 6 months? A year later, okay, well, I think I have to do things a different way. So, there's some things that are understandable. We have different regulations and rules and things that have to happen. And sometimes we don't see those roadblocks that our managers and that leadership has to face with it. So, sometimes those things happen. But, it's not for lack of trying. It's just a matter of it's just what happens in this environment. Now, on the areas of opportunity, clear direction from leadership, right? Where are we headed? Where do we belong? Who are we? And those things Dr. Flagg is going to talk about here shortly when I'm done with my presentation. The connection to VCR and to the university mission. What is our mission, vision, and values? And we're going to be asking you for some input on that. Because it's important when there is a mission and vision statement, you have to feel connected to it. You have to be able to state that mission and that vision to others in a very simplified form to be able to feel a part of that. And how do you bring your value to that? And how do you connect with that? And then lastly, creating a more positive and trusting culture between teams. As I said earlier, there's a lot of trust within teams, but across teams at times, maybe it's not as much. But as we start moving back into this more hybrid world where we have meetings like this, you have an opportunity to connect better. There's cross-functional things going on. That helps to build that more foundational trust across teams. So, things are being put into place to help with that. And I've had numerous meetings with the leadership teams. I've had individual meetings with the different departments. And each unit are looking at different things that they can do. So, it is being heard and we are moving forward. And I will stay involved in this because we are going to do another survey continuously next year and hopefully the year after that. So what's next? The mission statement, going to talk about that today. The leadership team is working together to create clear direction to be shared with the department. Watch for more active things happening. I'm working with the team to come up with professional development opportunities and other support. You know, whether it's creating focus groups to understand things that are going on in individual units or working on cohorts of development opportunities or other opportunities, whether it's just individual units or across the entire departments. Individual department development plans based off of survey feedback. We've already started some of that with OGC and OLAR, and we're getting ready to do this work with some other groups. Next survey, we are doing another survey. It doesn't stop with just one. We need to make this an ongoing thing. This was the benchmark to see where we were at. We do plan to launch this again in April of 2023. And we're looking to your participation in that survey again. It's definitely, you know, we need your feedback. We need to see where are we making strides, what's changing, where have we not made as much progress in. So, you know, your feedback is, you know, really needed. And it is anonymous. I mean, I did have those questions. I mean, I do get grilled on that because people are like, are you sure? It's not really anonymous. And trust me, I cannot trace it back to an IP address. There are no names attached to it. I purposely send it out as an anonymous link. And when I send out reminders, I have to resend it out to the entire group. That's why I say thank you very much for sending or completing the survey. If you've already done so, please don't do it again. Those of you who haven't, please, you know, fill out the survey. I do that for, you know, my own sake, but I also do it to keep it so that you feel comfortable completing the survey as well. That's what I wanted to share with you. And what I'd like to do now is open it up if anyone does have any questions that you haven't asked in any of the team meetings I've been in, or if we have any questions from anybody who's online. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions anyone might have. You're all so quiet. Okay. And if you don't feel comfortable asking any questions out loud, I'm going to be here throughout the presentation and I'll be around right after. If you want to catch me on your own, you're more than welcome to catch me after the presentation and ask me any questions you have. Okay? Oh, yes. For those of you online, if you want to ask any questions on chat, Shayla will not give out any names of anyone who's asking questions on chat either. Or either anything that I'm asking or when Dr. Flagg does his presentation. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you. So Debbie, I think you've just done a wonderful job and been so helpful for us in this plan. I just wanted to again, thank you for that and all the support you've given our teams. Okay, so now shifting to the next phase of this, we're going to talk a bit about missions and vision. And I would say that this is a topic that we had been thinking about back in 2021. When we got the feedback from the employee engagement survey, we frankly kind of reinvigorated our efforts there. And frankly, I think did more to this. We're really excited to kind of talk about that today. Now, a lot of us have been through strategic planning a number of times and have worked on mission statements and vision statements, but just to remind ourselves and to put some ideas forward. Oops. Two comments here. One is vision. So vision is our dream for the future. It's a forward-looking comment. It's meant to be bold and inspirational. So it's something I think one moniker is you can put it on a coffee cup, or you put it on a T-shirt. So it's pretty exciting in that regard. It's relevant over time, right? It's not something that's going to become irrelevant in a while. So this forward-looking thing that's maybe 15 or 20 years out in the future. Now contrast that to mission. Mission is our reason to be. What is our purpose? What are our core things that we do? This is again concise, outcome-oriented, and inclusive. So vision is that forward-looking, bold statement, and the mission is what we do. there's kind of a couple layers to this. So one thing to think about is the university. So one comment we got, I think it's very well stated in a number of comments. What is the university mission and vision? And how do we fit into that? So with that, we're going to talk a bit about the university. So again, our great campus, a place I'm very proud to work, as I'm proud to work on this team, has a lot of different parts to it, right? So you've got education, you've got research, you've got clinical care, you've got our outreach to the community. So the mission statement for the university is pretty broad along those lines. Allow me to read it for you. With innovation, agility, and excellence, we improve humanity by preventing illness, saving lives, educating health professionals and scientists, advancing science, and serving our communities. So again, it's a broad statement of what we do, encompassing all those different functions within the university: education, healthcare, and research. The vision, which is again a bold statement about the future, to provide the finest team-based healthcare, science, and education in the world by being collaborative architects that respond quickly to the changing needs of society and engage and honor the community around us through these lenses of diversity, equity, and inclusivity. So again, some important elements of that. Clearly a statement there by the university to include our community, our local community and beyond, speaking about our place as being recognized in the world and our collaboration as a key element. So again, those are the university's mission and vision. Those have been done recently. And I think, again, they're very good inclusive language for us to think about that. In addition to that, there are some specific research goals. So again, in our mission, in our office, we really focus on research. There's a few things to say here. There are 3 priorities that come out of the university. So the first one is cutting edge research. Now, I think for all of us in the room, we support cutting edge research. We see that. And I think the question we always have is, what's the next most cutting edge or emergent area? So encouraging cross-cutting research by building affinity groups across disciplines. There's a theme that you'll see as you read through these and think about them. Teamwork, bringing people together and allowing collaboration. And again, if you think of the different roles that we represent here, and I think there's 100 and some people again on the Zoom call right now, we really facilitate much of that building of affinity groups. Priority number 2 is innovative and agile infrastructure. So it's interesting the word infrastructure is in one of the priorities for research. I like that. Creating an ecosystem in which all can thrive with a flexible and innovative infrastructure that is responsive to current and future needs. So in a lot of ways, I think we represent part of that infrastructure. Perhaps we could argue a large part of the infrastructure that allows that. Agile is a key word. You see that sprinkled in here a few different ways. I think as I think about research the future and what our role is and what the overall movement's going to be, it's going to change and it might change quickly. And I think our agility, and again, I agree with Debbie's comments, we're not always the most agile. I agree with that, but we have to think of our infrastructure and how we adapt to a variety of different things that are coming down the pike for research. I think we'll play a very special role in priority 2. Number 3 is facilitating inclusive collaborations. Promote and incent connections between people to grow basic and clinical research pathways. So again, that theme of collaboration and bringing people together comes through in all of those. But again, if you think about the priorities of the university, and again, these are pretty high level priorities, but they fit in research, you can see that our role is really prominent in these activities. All right, a beautiful picture of Fitzsimmons Building, a fall day with a blue sky. So again, one thing that came out in our discussions and talking about this is a fundamental question. How do we fit into the university and how do we fit amongst ourselves? Now, the danger of showing any of these charts is they can get bigger and bigger and more lines, they start looking like a circuit breaker. So with the help of a few of our friends here, we've been working on just a basic concept of this to think about it. So if you think of the leader of our campus, that's the chancellor. You think about the key units on campus, I would think of those operational units that work with our mission, education, healthcare, and research. You think of the schools. The schools house the faculty members, our researchers, and everything else like that. They work closely with the chancellor, who again is the leader of the campus, in many of the endeavors that we're talking about there. On the right side, you see our affiliates. As an academic medical center, it is imperative that we have a very strong affiliation with our hospital partners, UC Health, Children's Hospital, the Veterans Administration, and Denver Health and Hospital Authority. So there's those key parts to that. Now, the chancellor reports up, if you will, to the president and the Board of Regents. So So the Board of Regents essentially is responsibility for the university, the 4 campuses. In fact, sometimes you'll see a note from us saying, on behalf or with the approval of the Board of Regents. That's how it works. They're sort of the board of directors, again, for the university and the 4 campuses. So if you think about this, the schools as these key operators, these units that help us to achieve the mission, our affiliates, the places and entities by which we work for those, the chances that the center of it, we fit an important part of that. Our unit, through me, reports directly to the chancellor. So we work with the other vice chancellors in these areas to achieve that mission. And so I would think of us as the key infrastructure of the university to accomplish these things. So you can see the executive vice chancellor for administration and finance. It's important in all the facilities and our buildings and everything. In that regard, Terry Carruthers, the executive vice chancellor for academic student affairs. That's Dr. Nairn. We've got the vice chancellor for health affairs, Dr. Riley. We've got our legal team, advancement, marketing communications, the vice chancellor for diversity, equity, inclusion, and community engagement, Dr. Richards. And our office sits directly in that. So we report directly to the chancellor. One question I get is, what school are you a part of? So we're outside of the school structure. We're in the central structure to that, and we serve all schools. We worked at this for a while. There's not too many lines. We didn't make it too complicated, I don't think, but hopefully it gives you a sense for it. Now, if you think of our office a little bit further, we essentially have, I'd say, 6 major pillars or units with subdivisions. And I think many of the leaders of these units are in the room today. A few we picked today they couldn't attend, so that's on us, certainly not them. For example, the first one I'd talk about there is basic science. This area is led by Lori Sussel. It's a newer area for us. It's emerged over the last couple of years. They support activities such as AV Nexus, our collaboration with Boulder. The limited submission grant opportunities are a very fundamental function of our office to identify a single grant that's going to go forward and represent our institution, program project grants, and then all their work in promoting and facilitating research programs. Next, we see the CCTSI, and I see Dr. Sokol is here and almost the front row, which is great to see. The CCTSI is a critical member and does all sorts of activities. It's hard to summarize, again, for any of these units in a simple slide, but again, the CTRC, many core facilities, a tremendous number of training opportunities, community engagement, health equity, and the list goes on and on. So it really offers all sorts of ways to support research. Clinical research operations, I see Ben is here. Good to see you, Ben, who leads this new unit, which has just really been developed in the last couple of years. This includes, again, clinical research support team, or CREST, the cell therapy operations program, or CTOP, process improvement, workforce development, and all sorts of things. And as I've watched Ben develop that program, I've seen all the other units working with Ben in support of that, which has just been great. In addition, we have the Office of Grants and Contracts and Fiscal Compliance and Training. This office reports also to the Executive Vice Chancellor for Administration and Finance and our CFO. Again, a litany of different important functions played by this office: pre-award, contracts, post-award, training, and compliance. Really important work. OLAR, and I think we picked the day that Jory was out of town. So again, that's on us. Jory does an outstanding job of leading this unit, which plays a critical role on our campus. Administration, animal husbandry, operations, veterinary services, really critical work to our research institution. And finally, we have listed regulatory compliance, and Allison Lakin is here. Allison, thanks for all your work. Again, many of our critical functions reside in this unit. Clinical Research Administration, or CREO, COMERB, Conflict of Interest, the Office of Research Committee Support, ORCS, Privacy, Electronic Research Administration, and EH&S, or Environmental Health and Safety. So again, this just gives you a sense of how our units fit together in that structure. The danger of any of these slides is that we haven't included everything, but hopefully gives you a flavor with some representations there. Now, this slide we worked on a little bit. The danger of this is that, again, we're leaving some parts out. We sort of ran out of room on the slide. But the point of this is a representative example of a project, just to give you a sense of how we fit into that larger project and the different units that are needed for this. We can give different examples. We can do later examples, earlier examples, but this is just something to give you a flow of it. So if you think about how we enable that mission to go forward. So if you've got a bench researcher who's got an idea and develops a team and brings people together and says, I think this may be effective for human health. I'd like to get it to the clinic. Let's use that as an example. They would put a group of people together, almost always collaborative, clinical scientists, PhD scientists, biostatisticians, and so forth. And they would work through these different steps, right? It'd make sure everybody in their team had the proper training and preparation. It's actually a big part of what we do. And when that doesn't happen, things most never go well. They've got an idea. They've now solidified to the point of having a grant that they want to submit. Again, need many different areas of our team. So we think of this first part, research, training, and preparations. Many of our units are a key part of that training and preparation, which happens ahead of time. And frankly, it keeps happening as new members of the team come into that. Basic science, CCTSI, conflict of interest, EHS, and CREO. Once we get to that grant submission phase, again, different groups come together. The CCTSI membership would give them all sorts of opportunities there. OGC, and again, our basic science group. Then those in vitro lab experiments take place. Cell culture experiments, those first ways of saying, let's think this new drug, is it working? How's it working? What's the best model for that? And so forth. EHS, ORCS, basic science support that. If those are successful, we can imagine this thing moving down to animal testing. So the next step to go to the clinic would be to test this in animals. Again, OLAR, ORCS, basic sciences would all be supporting those efforts and beyond. If that's positive, they may then say, well, let's look at a clinical trial. Let's design that. Let's think of the best way to take this idea and translate it into something we can test in the clinic. The CCTSI Studio Group, CTOP can help with some of these, certainly CREO and OGC would all then come together to support those activities. Clinical trial submission. So those are positive, and we now say we're going to design this protocol. Those things can range from 20 pages to several hundred pages in design. Again, you can see listed here all the different groups, CREO, COMER, conflict of interest, ORCS, CREST, and OGC that may play a role in that step. The next phase is clinical trial accrual. The thing is actually off the ground and rolling. So you can then imagine, again, a CCTSI to the CTRC and CREST, among others. So this is one timeline. Again, I think the danger of this is you can think of a different way to do it, and there's all kinds of examples out there. But in this representative example, you can see the many ways that our group would work together and support that researcher. And frankly, it's a complicated path. When you have an idea in the lab, and you want to get it to a clinical trial, it's a complicated path, but it's impossible without the work that we do in the background. Okay, so a few things here, shifting gears from that, just to talk about our mission and vision. So with that, I think we've talked about what the university mission and vision is. We've talked a little bit about how we fit into both the university and each other. And now we're going to talk a bit about the development of our mission and vision drafts, which we're going to talk about today. So in developing this, we've gone through a process, and Leah Emmerich, who's not able to be here today, which is too bad, has been a great driver and supporter of this. I just wish to recognize all of her efforts in helping us get to this. So we've gone through this process of process analysis, listening to the voice of the customer, some strategic planning, looking at performance metrics. Now to this point of really making sure we loop back and getting some additional feedbacks. We're sort of at that phase of this process right now. We've gone through a few facilities. So Leah's helped us over a bit of time here to go through some facilitated sessions. The first was in 2021. So interesting, it sort of predated some of the things we're doing here. We talked about mission ideas individually. We talked about themes that represented this group that we're part of. Statement development, we did that in a small group, and then took a stand on what we sort of liked with that. We had a second session in the spring of 2022. Wordsmithing, so I guess with these things, we oftentimes spend a lot of time thinking about the exact words, and you can spend a lot of time going back and forth, but you want to get it just right. We worked on what we call the quote-unquote final draft statement. Ended with one statement that the group needed. So we initially just had a mission statement. We didn't have a vision statement and left it at that. And then we had the employee engagement survey. And as we looked at the feedback, and I would say what Debbie said, it's completely anonymous. And I read through, I think we had an 80-page document. I read through those comments a couple of times. They seemed sincere and helpful. And after we did that, we said, we need to regroup on this a little bit before we go out. We need to think about the mission statement and respond to this. It was helpful, and think about a vision statement. So we got together again more recently. We revisited the mission statement, did some additional wordsmithing on that. We drafted a separate vision statement, which I'll show you here shortly, as a draft to discuss. We looked at the vision statement, wordsmithing, and then we have these final drafts that are ready to review. So it's been a process. So here's our draft mission statement. Allow me to read it for you. Committed to a diverse, team-based culture. We engage and collaborate with the research community to provide expertise, support, and guidance for the advancement of science. So this goes back to what we do. How do we incorporate that? There's that, I think, very good and university-based mission statement, but ours is quite specialized. So what we do with this is we bring it down to a level. Let me just break this into parts just for a moment. Again, this is many hours of work to get to this draft, your feedback. It's always sort of interesting. We put a lot of thought into this, though. Committed to a diverse, team-based culture. We are truly committed to a culture that's team-based, it's diverse, it's collaborative, we listen to each other, and we work beyond our teams with the other teams. With the complicated things that we have to do, I think that's the only way to do it. That's an important statement. We engage and collaborate with the research community. We clearly do. I think one of the things that surprises the research community, or at least the letters they'll send me, is I had this great experience with one of the groups in here. They were so collaborative. I couldn't have done this. I got one this morning, as a matter of fact, from the Chancellor, no less. Somebody here was singled out and said, I couldn't have done this without the help from someone on your team. And so we do collaborate and engage with the research community on multiple levels. And we probably don't take enough credit or celebrate that enough. It's really important. The next part of this is to provide expertise, support, and guidance for the advancement of science. We thought those were the right words, or approximately the right words to think about this. Our expertise, the expertise of our team. Let's look at that complicated little timeline for that one representative example. There's all sorts of expertise that we need to guide the researcher. Researchers are people like me. I'm a translational researcher, got a small lab. I've done a number of clinical trials over the years, but I can't do all this. I can't know it all. I can't do it all. It takes a team of support around that. So our expertise is critical. The support, I think that's an important sense of this, and the guidance, expertise, support, and guidance for the advancement of science. So that's our draft mission statement. The vision, and again, Leah's so good. She's got it up here, where we want to go. No, this one comes out very slowly. If I could read this one. Thanks, Leah. That was good. It's more dramatic this way. Together, we make tomorrow's research happen. So again, this is something you can put on a mug, you can put on a t-shirt, you can think about it. Together, we make tomorrow's research happen. You can think, what does it together mean? I think it means our team, beyond our teams, the teams working together, and working with the research community. So together we make tomorrow's, so whatever's coming next, and we don't exactly know, whatever's coming next, that research to happen. Okay, next steps. I think Debbie did an outstanding job of outlining several key things we've been talking about. So thank you for doing that, Debbie, including additional HR support, an additional survey, ongoing engagement with Debbie. There's a number of things in her last slide. So take note of that. I think it's wonderfully summarized. Our next step, we're doing okay for time. We're going to ask for your feedback after this. So again, open things up here for comments. I know it's not always easy to give a group feedback. That's fine. We'll give you a form to use for that as well. We really do value that. And I would say that we have studied the comments that have come in to date, and hopefully this is at least partially responsive to that. It's intended to be. So we'll have feedback before the 26th. We'll review that feedback, do our final wordsmithing, communications review, and we plan to publish that. So we will have an official mission and vision statement for our unit. We're really excited about that with your input. The thought is that we have the state of research talk. It's kind of our chance to really talk to the rest of the community, and frankly, amongst the broader research community, to bring things together. I think last year we had about 500 people join that Zoom, so we were excited to do that. We would like to announce this at that meeting to the campus and say, we are University Research, we're the Office of the Vice Chancellor of Research, and we want to express our mission and our vision to everybody else. We'll look at those final statements. We look at incorporating those statements into strategic planning and talk about these statements often. So again, I think at this point, we've got another chance for feedback and questions. This one's going to roll a little slower, it looks like, too. I would say at some key moment, I promised Natasha would not forget about the picture. I'll just end with a few comments from me. I really feel very honored to be in this position. I've been in this for a while. I think some of you that know me realize that we started in March of 2020. It was an interesting time to start. I think some of the outreach I would have naturally have done in this job was sort of not possible. We weren't here in a variety of things. think it's important to say I'm very proud to be in this position. I'm very proud to work with all of you and at times be able to represent this team. It's a tremendous team. You look at the things that we've done in research over the last 2 years, last 5 years, last 10 years, it's been pretty remarkable. We have thousands of clinical trials open. We've got 500-ish labs that are operating and going. If you look at the competition we have for research dollars, it continues to go up. I'll announce that meeting in a remarkable way. We've got over 5,000 faculty members we support in this campus. We're able to generate the resources to build beautiful buildings like this and support additional researchers that are moving in here. I'm very proud to be a part of this team. I'm proud of what we've done. And I've seen it from the researcher side of view. I found a letter I got. I was cleaning my desk recently when I started here from I don't know if I've told you, it was from Allison and Dick Traceman. I found a letter welcoming me to the campus and invited me to do some training, I think what it was. And I'd say that for some reason. I don't know if I've told you that, Allison. It's proud for me. I'm proud to be part of that operation, recognize what we do, and again, at times be able to represent this group and our activities to the rest of the campus. So I mean that sincerely. And again, I thank you for taking time today to be with us, to think through this. I look forward to the feedback you have here. Where to provide your input and ask questions, it's right there. We've left that up for a while. Hopefully that that makes sense. I think our next slide is just pictures right here. So very good. Maybe the last thing I'll say is thank you to all the people that have helped with this process. Leah Emmerich is not here. Deb Lammers has been a fantastic partner. You really have been, so thank you. Shayla, Natasha, Michelle, everybody else, all the leaders, the units, and all of you for your engagement. I think it's a good start, right? And the thing we're saying to you is we're going to continue to do this. Another survey. Based on the survey, we could certainly have meetings like this in the future as well if they're useful. We look forward to your feedback. So with that, I'll see if there's any questions, either through the chat with Shayla or here in the room. Fantastic.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Richard Okoto. I'm part of the privacy, department, the Office of Regulatory Compliance under Allison Lakin. And I definitely appreciate your presentations and the diagrams in terms of the organizational structure. And definitely one of the things that I think I noted, in terms of the mission was the research community. So I think my question is, what are like the ways that we foster a research community? Because actually a couple days ago, I was a part of an HCCA organization where we network and we talk and specifically about the certification that I'm actually pursuing related to healthcare compliance or healthcare privacy compliance. So I'm wondering what kind of maybe opportunities, organizational opportunities, maybe even one-on-ones that there are to foster and encourage and energize the research community.
It's a great question, and thanks for the question. Good to see you. I think in a lot of ways, one of the things that comes out of this, maybe one of the themes you've seen from us, is to develop culture, right? How do we try and do that? If you look at our world right now, right, we all get 200 emails a day. We're all busy. We're working remote. We understand reasons for that. I'm doing telehealth, seeing patients remotely. All these different things are going on. So I think we have to be very deliberative in trying to form the culture we want. And the culture would be amongst ourselves. How do we work together most efficiently, celebrate the successes, and realize what we can do together? It's also to the broader, I think that's your question, the broader research community. I think I mentioned there are 5,500 faculty members or something on campus. Someone helped me make a slide last year. I think there were 1,500. I've been here about 20 years now, 1,500 when I started there. I think it has to be a deliberate effort. The State of Research, for example, that talk we give once a year, where we get all kinds of feedback, is a chance to show our connection to the research community, and through the videos we do and the discussion, everything, we build culture that way. I would say the research awards that are coming up is another way that our office, all of us, support and celebrate the researchers on campus. I think it really is important. I would say I think that culture has developed over time, meaning seeing us as part of that essential engine that moves people forward. But this we have to continue to work at. And if there's ideas about that, I've given you a couple here. There's more. Feel free to reach out to me with those suggestions, because I think as a group, developing that inclusive, collaborative culture with ourselves, with the research community, is really just going to make it the most fun and efficient for us. Research is fun. There might have been a question over here too. Ethan Carter. Good afternoon.
I wonder if you could illustrate for us the magnitude of the research enterprise, like fiscally as it relates to the total university enterprise? Because it's significant.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Every year it sort of goes up, right? There's a few different ways to look at this. There's grants, there's contracts, there's philanthropy. The number we have from this last year, I remember because I put it on Twitter. They got me to do Twitter, as you probably know. So anyways, is $777 million of research grants, contracts, or philanthropy. So $750 million a year. It's a tremendous. So a couple things to say about that. First of all, to receive that sort of funding, sponsor funding, means that there's an outside recognition of what we, meaning us, the research, all of us, are doing. It's impactful and it's well regarded. That number has been going up between 5 and 10% for the last many years, which is, again, in a very competitive environment, means that our researchers are well situated to apply for these sorts of things. So it's really a fantastic number. It also means, I guess, beyond the scientific impact, which is most important, that we are an important part of the university structure, the finances, look at this building. There's a new building built and research is done, the CTRC, the CCTSI, personalized medicine. There's a number of important research functions that happen in this building. Ethan, is that getting at what you're asking there or beyond that? There's a couple of thousand clinical trials that are open. There's 500 laboratories. There's millions of square feet of laboratory space, all that's supported by us. It's an impressive number. See Betsy raising her hand over here.
Thanks to everybody doing all this work. It's pretty awesome. My question is, and I'm Betsy Collins, I'm the Director of Research Information Technology. So we support the work that you guys do. So my question is, now that we have like a mission and vision for the entire unit, can our subunits come up with our own mission and visions to support this mission and vision?
So good to see you, Betsy, and thanks for the comment. And I would just say we're not exactly set on this one. So again, we're sort of in this listening phase too. So if there's people that say, boy, there's a part of that doesn't ring true, or I want to bring this over to that. I myself am very open to that idea. Again, we started with that university. We got to this. We said, what's the university mission and vision? Okay, that rings true, but we have a special function within that in our office, University Research. And I can imagine you see the same thing. All right, what Tom was talking about made some sense, and that's part of our large team, but we have a specific function within that we want to define and celebrate and look forward. So again, from my point of view, I think that's positive. Shayla, I've been pacing around up here. Is there anything on the Zoom that you wanted to put forward, or to Debbie? All right. Zoom is quiet right now. It's all right. Any more questions from the group here? Dr. Sokol.
The CCC test side, we've had our own mission
Yeah.
statement for 18 years, something like that. So maybe that's something to think about for you.
So Ron Sokol just spoke up in case you couldn't hear them, that the CCTSI for 18 years, I think you said, has had a mission and vision, and it's fantastic. And yeah, I think I've been a part of this process over the years, and it's just important. It's interesting because it makes you stop and think, and you do sort of say, what about this word versus that word? But that's okay, because it's really important to say, how do we want to think about ourselves and express that to the broader external community? Okay, some good questions. Not online, it doesn't look like. Any more here? Debbie, I think I'd monopolize this talk. Anything else that you wanted to add to this? Okay. All right, I'm going to look at Natasha. So I think we're wrapping up here. How do you want us to think about this picture bit?